Yeah, hi, Matt again. Next 72 hours. I've just been going through my my old bow and drill set and got a few drills here. Been experimenting with a few things, and one of the big things I found when I started learning how to do bow and drill fire starting method was this part here is the most important part, the socket. And in this instance, it's a bit of old antler that I put in oil, and I've just drilled a hole through here. You could do that with your Swiss Army knife, which I assume most people are going to carry something with a multi-tool anyway. And to be honest, on this, I use that the awl probably more than anything else. So you can drill a hole through antler pretty easily using the awl and using your knife blade. But I just wanted to share over the years I found I sort of came up with a much easier way. And the assumption is that you have a certain few items with you. Okay, show me you have a Swiss Army knife. Show me you probably have a larger knife like this. Now what I've made here is this is just a branch that I've split at the back, split the branch down this way, and then I've split it again. So I've split that again, and I haven't changed. I haven't flattened that off. I want the grooves and the grooves in here. I want that the rough bit where the splits are. So what I've done then is on this bit here, using my awl and my knife, I've basically made the guide part, the whole part of the tool. Now, because it's all the way through, you can start off with your awl, which again I should have not put away. Where is it? Here it is on the back. Okay, so start off with your awl, just drilling through the wood. Now this is the good thing about this is I can use very soft wood for this. Typically what people recommend, they usually recommend hardwood for a few reasons. Hardwood for your socket is so that it doesn't wear out too fast. Now what happens is, what I found, if you just use a wood socket, when it starts to get hot down the bottom here and smoke up, it's starting to hot up at the top here too and smoke up. Now you can sort of oil the end by rubbing over your nose, the end, this bit here, because your nose, particularly us guys, can be pretty greasy and oily, so you can oil up the end. But even so, that will quickly start smoking up. And now what actually happens is, when that happens, it starts binding in this end. So now, instead of just trying to control the friction on the bottom, you're trying to control the friction on the top. And the binding on the top sort of starts to jump, and it starts to be harder to control, and you'll find that you'll lose the drill. You basically, the drill will pop out and go flying, and your attempt at starting a fire is frustrated. So what I came up with, I'm thinking of all the different things you can find. Now, if you read a survival book, they will say things like, use a bit of hardwood as your socket and form a hole, and then they go, or find an antler or a piece of bone or stone with a natural hole in it. Now, I've even tried, a shell or something like that where it's got a natural hole. Now, if you're holding on the shell, that heat goes all the way through your hand. It's very hot. Burn your hand. So I swear half these guys who've written these books haven't actually tried this method. So this is how this works. In this instance, what I've done, I've split it off. I've created a recess. Now the recess is made with, as I said before, with just a Swiss Army knife. That recess can be any flat, sort of hard object. Now, assuming that you've got some change on you, 20-cent coin, this Australian 20-cent coin, you could have put a 20-cent coin in there. Actually, a 20-cent coin is probably the best thing in some ways, because you can actually make a square hole, doesn't have to be round, and it's pretty thin and pretty strong. You don't have to worry about the bumps on this, the little fine bumps. Drill is not going to care, okay? Certainly not when it compares to rubbing against another piece of timber. So, or you could use this. In this instance, this is a piece of stone. It actually looks like flint. I don't know what it is. I'm no expert. but I doubt very much if it's flint. It's quite soft. It's not as hard as some flint objects I've actually handled. Anyway, it looks like flint, and it splits in layers. So you hit this just the right way, and I've managed to split off a few chunks, and this one here is pretty flat. Now what I could do if I wanted to make that flatter, I could just rub that on the other piece, and then immediately you're starting to make that a bit flatter. And seriously, I reckon this would make a good sharpening stone as well. It's pretty smooth. It's a little soft, as I say. That's why it makes me think it's not flint, but it certainly works like flint, unless it's rotten flint or something. I don't know. Anyway, you can see that sort of flattening off. Okay, so that could be put into the base in that part there. Actually, it would go the other way because that's where the hole is. I flip that over, we go in the hole like that, bind that up like that. In this instance, I have a piece of bone, basically being shaped exactly square because it's easier to make a square hole than a round hole with a knife, because you just sort of cut down the sides and then split it off. And this has just been cut off. I can't even remember what bone this was. I think I split it open with a large hard arm, and then cut it off with the metal blade on the saw. Sorry, cut it off with the metal saw of the sack. So you can see that I've already had that in that position there. So pop it back in, flatten it off. It's pretty flat there, and there we go. So you can see the bearing surface. It's going to fit in really nicely. I mean, you can make that a bit deeper too for new people. That can be a bit deeper so it doesn't jump out so easily. And you can see how I've got the notches cut for the string. Actually, I don't have any string at the moment, so I'll bind this up off camera. But you can see what the reason why I've done that. Instead of having one here and one there, if I had one here and one here, either opposite, what will happen is when it's bound together, even if I do it as tight as I can, there'll be a little bit of slop and it will move. Now, not that that's such a big deal anyway, but if I go like this, for example, with this bit of string and do it a couple of times, you can see when I tighten that up, this is pulling that down and this is pulling this side up. So there's less slop. So it's going to move. It's still going to move a little bit, but it's going to move less. There's going to be less slop in that, especially if you're using natural materials. You notice at the bottom that it's clearing the hole. That's one thing you want. You don't want to be binding this up and then finding out you've gone across the hole. It's no good. But that's a simple trick around the sockets. Aside from wood selection, I think the socket is the single most important thing you want to actually get right. Well, there's a lot of things you want to get right. But if you wanted to put a fair amount of effort into the socket, it just makes the job so much easier. And of course, you only need to make it once, and it will last you for ages. As I said before, I've made a few of these sets. I end up giving them away. People have a go, love it so much, and then they end up, wanting your stuff. So I've given so much of the stuff away over the years. Hopefully, people are having a bit of fun with it. Now, okay, another thing. I made this up. I wanted to bring this up. This is made out of the same material you use as the baseboard. It's pretty soft. You can put your thumbprint in it. Pretty soft. It's an Australian native. I don't know what it is. The parrots here love the seeds off this. The reason why I use this, it's a softwood, and it has standing dead branches. So it basically self prunes, but the branches are up in the tree, so you can pull them off. It's not a eucalyptus or anything like that. It's more like a jungle plant. Maybe I'll try and find out what it is. But personally, what I do is I actually check for this type of. If it gets my nail indentation, it's quite light and soft, then I think that's going to make a good baseboard. Now, when you're selecting the drill, there's two things you need to consider. If you make the drill and the baseboard from the same wood, the friction of it is actually higher. But because I'm using a pretty soft wood, you actually go through the wood pretty fast. The drill eats up pretty quickly. Also, because it's a softer wood, it's not so hard. it can break easier, especially if in this case you see I've tapered it, I've got square edges, and I've got the, actually I've probably got this too big at the bottom. I'll take more width off this. I'd like it a little bit smaller. You can see that's a little bit smaller. You can see I've done the same with this one. This is a hardwood. The reason why it's actually square is actually simply when you thread it up. Okay, thread it up like that, so that this string here is on the top and that string is on the bottom. Well, that's how I like to do it. If you do it the other way, they tend to cross over and you wear the string out too fast. So what happens is the square component bites into the kermantle of this rock climbing rope, which is I prefer to paracord because it's just that much tougher, and it just really bites. Now, because I've got it thinner here and it's thicker at the bottom, I'm basically camming the shaft here, so this is rotating pretty fast, and the outer edge of this is going to be really moving. So the outer edge, where it's larger, is going to be going faster than this component here. So by doing that, I'm getting a higher speed at the drill bit. I hope that makes sense to you guys, which means, of course, I've got more friction. But if I want to press down, I have to have that and get a bit more pressure rather than getting friction via speed, but friction via pressure. That really needs to be able to bite as well. Otherwise, the string will start to slip. Now, there was one advantage with doing it. We start the other way. Is when I'm doing the bow drill method, I push down on this here. So I'm holding the string. If I want the string to bite a bit more, I can use my thumb to actually tighten it up. Okay, so I don't want to be doing that for the whole period, but if it does start slipping at any point, pushing down on the string with your thumb can actually just tighten it up, especially right near the end when you're starting to get a whole lot of smoke, and friction will actually go up because that char is starting to char up really well, and you know, that's sort of slowing everything down. What I'll do, one more thing, well actually a couple more things, but I'll switch the camera off and fix up my socket first. I was just walking through a bit of bush the other day. It wasn't reserved or anything, it was private land. So I grabbed this. Now, Australians are really blessed to have this tree. It used to be called the black boy tree, but because of racial sensitivity or indigenous sensitivity, the name was changed to a grass tree. It's actually got a green bushy head with a black shaft, and this sticks out the top with a big sort of pod on the end. The stalk itself, what's so cool about them is that they're actually standing. So often you've got this dead wood that's standing, so they're pretty dry. But this has to be the easiest material in Australia to learn to start a fire on. This particular stick isn't as thick as I would have liked it, and I know a location where there's a few more. Basically what I'll do is, this is going to be the drill end, and then I have to flip it over and obviously make a little indentation and try and get the fire going through on this end. Typically though, some of these black boy stalks can be, or grass tree stalks can be a little thicker, and if they are sort of like the thickness of this, you know, that's the stalk from that end or the drill end will bite in quite well. But if you get the pieces right, it's almost impossible not to get an ember. So we'll give that a try with this. If not, if the pieces don't work out, I'll see if I can find a better piece with a thicker bottom. Anyway, that's enough for now. I'll fix up the socket. That's the main point I wanted around this video, and the thought that you could use anything in your pocket, 20-cent coins, find a stone, piece of glass, anything that's hard, and then you can use a softwood socket and you'll get real high performance from that. And it's doable with just a Swiss Army knife alone. If you really wanted to, you just a bit of effort to split it, but you know, with a Swiss Army knife and with a larger camp knife, you should be able to do this. It does assume that you're going to have some decent string, which I actually do carry with me. I have little lengths of string all over the place in all sorts of packs and tied on everywhere, even sometimes on my key rings, simply because I want to have string available for bow drill fly starting. I can make my own string. I was taught by this lovely old Indonesian guy how to make string, and this is traditionally made rope, and you obviously just make it a whole lot thinner. You can see the fibres sticking out. It's made from matting from a palm tree. Now that is really strong. I certainly could use this as a bow drill string. Obviously I don't want to, it's quite precious for me. Anyway, that's enough for now. We will call this fire drill and socket, and we'll probably do a couple of demos. So anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.